yesterday's blues, yeah. Turn the TV off, cause bad news, man.
Welcome to The Sports Show. Good morning and welcome to The Sports Show here on Lake Effect Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Kirby. We have a great show for you guys this morning. But first, I want to talk about those Ohio State Buckeyes as they went on and beat Minnesota, and as they routed Minnesota, 30-14 on Saturday. The Buckeyes were led by Dwayne Haskins, throwing 33 of 44 for 412 yards and 3 touchdowns. Mike Weber led the team in rushing with 13 carries for 51 yards. And then K.J. Hill added 9 receptions for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. His longest was 42 yards. And he also had an insane one-handed catch that almost seemed Odell Beckham-esque. I mean, he didn't even bring the ball into his body. He took the ball and he just took it out of the air. And I don't know if any of you saw it, but his celebration almost mimicked the Geico commercial with Stephon Diggs, where everything just stuck to his hands because he was pretending like the ball was stuck to his hands. So I'm joined by Jeremiah. Jeremiah, do you think this game has an effect on the playoff implications for Ohio State?
Not necessarily. It shouldn't have been as close, but it is what it is.
But then you look at, the other games, like, you look at Georgia. I mean, the number 2 ranked team in the country, they lost to LSU handily 36-16. That also had a huge. I mean, people were saying all along that had an effect on the playoff, rankings wise.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, for Ohio State, every game matters if you think about it.
Well, especially you think the 2 or 3 really upcoming. You got the Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue, and then
Purdue, Michigan State, then Michigan.
Purdue, Nebraska. And then,
out of the remaining games.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you mean big games?
Huh?
Do you mean like big games or just?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because they're at Purdue, right?
Right. Yeah, they're at Purdue, and then they're at Michigan State, and then at home against Michigan. But I feel like I was going to mention the Nebraska game. Nebraska almost reminds me of the Cleveland Browns from last year. They have not won a single game this year. Yet. Huh. Under Scott Frost, who came over from, UCF?
I don't know.
I think it was UCF. But I mean, you look at that. I mean, you look at Nebraska being in the Big Ten. They haven't won a game yet. I mean, it's kind of funny to see that the Browns are playing well in the NFL, but then you see a team in college like Nebraska not winning a game yet. It almost feels like it's like that turnover, if you will. Like whereas like the Browns were doing bad last year, now it's like a college team has that sort of daunting or curse on them.
Yeah, Ohio State, they got 3 big ones coming up still yet.
Oh yeah,
especially Purdue. You can't take that lightly.
Right. I mean, Purdue right now they're in the West, the Big Ten West. They are 4th in the Big Ten West at 2-1 in the conference and 3-3 overall, and they're not even ranked in the top 25.
Well, it's here and there. We didn't play good in that a few times out there. So, and even you take Michigan State in that, it's here and there. We struggled at their house.
Right. I mean, Michigan State just beat Penn State, who was ranked 8th. I mean, that also,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at that match. I mean, look at that game. I mean, McSorley didn't play well. I mean, it just...
To be honest, I didn't see Penn State being that great, being able to keep up in the top 5.
I mean, given that they lost, Saquon Barkley to the draft, that was like a huge piece of their team.
Well, they're all young, in a way.
Right.
They're going to hit roadblocks, so I'm not shocked that they got knocked off.
Oh yeah.
I had a feeling it's almost like LSU,
right.
They're competitive. LSU, over the many years, they had many issues of they didn't have players or they lost tough ones by just some dumb that.
Right.
you knew it was going to be their time to shine coming up here.
And, you look at actually, it's kind of funny. You look at the quarterback for LSU. He's actually transferred over from Ohio State, Joe Burrow. He went 50 of 30 for 200 yards. I mean, see...
2 rushing.
And 2 rushing.
Touchdowns. He had like 65 yards rushing or something.
Right, yeah, 13 carries for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you think about, he was at Ohio State, he was the backup to Dwayne Haskins. I feel like this was his moment to shine. It was almost like what Kyrie did, where he went to Boston. It was almost like, okay, I need to be, that field general, if you will, and just take over the team. Because when you watch him play with LSU, I mean, he's able to just see, okay, if this guy's not open, I've got a second, He
had a good system that he learned from.
Right.
Including, Barrett in that, watching what he did.
Right.
And even in, the film room and that.
Oh, yeah.
You knew he was going to develop into, is he going to be a great? I don't know.
I mean, he's in one of the toughest conferences in college football, so that is.
But you knew he was going to shine at some point in time.
Yeah. I mean, and then you also look at, the rankings just came out yesterday. The new AP Top 25 just came out yesterday, and they had Ohio State they were only up a ranking, but they went from number 3 to number 2, and Georgia was knocked out of the top 25. That blew my mind because, I mean, you look at how good Georgia is. I mean, they've got, sophomore quarterback in Jake Fromm. They were in the national championship game last year and played very well against Bama. But to see, them getting, like, one loss, I never thought that – or wait, never mind, excuse me. They are now 8th, excuse me. I did not see that. They are 8th, so they were –
You're fired. Can you read this morning?
But, like, even that, I mean, they went from number 2 to number 8. I mean, yeah, they're still in the top 10, but they're out of that playoff picture, which, I mean, you look at the other.
You can never say never because of one thing. We thought that Ohio State a few years ago,
right?
They weren't going to get in a playoff picture, and what happened? A lot of big schools took a dive.
Right. I mean, even, you look at, we had a backup quarterback in Cardell Jones the first year of the playoff, and we ended up beating Bama, and we beat Oregon. And then, actually, speaking of Bama, I don't know if you heard, but their quarterback Tua Tagovailoa hurt his knee, on Saturday against Missouri, so they had to bring, their Jalen Hurts in. I mean, you think about that. They had Tua Tagovailoa, who won the game for them in the championship game starting, and then he ends up getting hurt. I mean, I feel like this is I was hoping for, I feel like it's all good. I feel like Bama's going to have that slow up at some point, Like, I mean, as you said, every team has that, that one hiccup that.
And he wasn't threatening transfer. That Hurts.
I don't think Hurts
I
don't think Hurts was because he wasn't all that. I mean, he didn't seem all that upset. But I mean, you got to give Saban credit. I mean, he's one of the greatest coaches in college football. To have that flexibility of, okay, if Tua's not playing well, you bring Jalen in and have him play, a series or two. So I feel like, that also helps out, I mean,
in a way.
Because, I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts, he's more of a runner. He's more of I'd call it Baker Mayfield. He runs the ball, he can throw the ball. He's basically that all-around guy. But then you look at Tua, he's more of that pocket passer. So, I feel like it's great to have those two guys in there. I mean, but then you look at, their schedule, and it's not all that difficult until about, I think, coming up, they got Tennessee at home. They're at Tennessee, and then they're at LSU. So
LSU, that's the more worrisome one.
Oh yeah, but then they're at home against Mississippi State, and then they've got I call it a garbage game, if you will, against the Citadel, which is probably going to be like a 63-0 blowout. To be honest with you, speaking of that game, I feel like the NCAA is really college football. I mean, I get bringing these small schools in to play these Big Ten schools, but that game to have it the week before the Auburn game, it doesn't make sense if you think about it, because you're going from facing a team that is, I mean, no offense to the Citadel, but to a low profile team, and then you're going the following week and playing at home against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Like that doesn't make sense. The NCAA needs to work on that scheduling, or the conference even. The SEC needs to work on that. Well,
the other thing is even independently the schools. But here and there, some of these small schools, they like it for one reason, because they can get good chunk of funds and that from it. And that's why they do it.
True. But I mean, you think about was it 2016? Yeah, it was 2016 that or was it 2013? It was one of the was it 2013? Let me take a look at that. Cuz Bama, I remember they had one loss one of the years. Let me see if I can find that.
What do you think? 7 years. It's been what, 7 years since Appalachian State took out Michigan.
That's true. Yeah, it was 2013. That run back by Chris Davis in the Iron Bowl. But that was the playoff wasn't yet created. But I mean, you think about that. I mean, you look at that game. I mean, in 2013, that had a huge effect on the BCS even when it was still there.
Yeah.
So I mean, in my opinion, Alabama could choke against Auburn. I could see Alabama losing to Auburn because I mean, yeah, Auburn's not ranked. I mean, let's see, Auburn, where are they at? They're second to last in the SEC West, but you think about that, Alabama's in that division, so it's like, you know, you look at that as well. But, you know, going back to Ohio State, they were without Urban Meyer for the first, what was it? First couple games, or first 3 games, was it, of the season? Something like that?
Yeah, 3 or 4, something.
And they still came out and, I mean, they manhandled Rutgers. They manhandled Tulane. I mean, I feel like
But tell me, how many times have you seen Tulane up there in the top 25, though?
True. That is true. But then you look at, you know, coming off that win against Tulane, they go and they only win by 1 against Penn State. I don't like how this happens where the scheduling really, it worries me because, you know, you look at the Alabama schedule. They got the Citadel before Auburn. Why don't you make that? Because I don't even know if they have a bye week in that, which, yeah, they don't have it. What do they do?
Well, some schools, they do it. Some take it at the end. It all depends because the athletic directors have a say in who they schedule and all that stuff.
Right.
So,
I mean, some of these games, like, I mean, I get the beginning of the year, these games, you know, against, you know, like Louisiana Lafayette or any of those teams, but to have basically a game that really doesn't mean anything right before a game that is the last game of the season, a rivalry game.
Unless they're thinking in case people are banged up to sort of rest a few people.
True. I mean, you could rest a few people against a team like the Citadel, but
before the Iron Bowl.
Right. I mean, but that just, I mean, you look at, you know, Ohio State is second ranked. If Alabama were to lose next week against Tennessee, I mean, in my opinion, Alabama could lose at any point. They're not one of those teams that is invincible. I mean, in past years they've shown that they are, you know, that 13-0 team.
Well, no one's invincible, and especially in college.
Right. I mean, you could very easily have, you know, Tua go out and Jalen, you know, they could both get hurt in one game, and who knows how deep they are at quarterback. I mean, Ohio State is, I mean, I could very easily see Ohio State jumping into that top spot at some point before the playoff rankings are put out, before the final ones are put out.
The only thing is they got to get past Purdue, Michigan State, and Michigan.
True. But, I mean, right. But you also think about, you know, Purdue, they haven't been playing all that well. Purdue isn't, I mean, they're what? They're fourth in the Big Ten West at 2-1.
But you think how their fans are going to be cranked up of, oh, look, number 2 in the country in that?
True.
Not even the players in that.
Right. But you think about that, that can all go.
Whoever
reverse.
thought Sparty would take out Penn.
True. But think about that, granted, that was at a hostile environment at Penn State. I was at Penn State in a whiteout. I mean, I just feel like, you know, some of these teams in the Big Ten, they aren't. I mean, I feel like the only teams Ohio State needs to worry about are like Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan. Basically, those 3 teams.
Well, you look.
I mean,
back in the day under Krenzel and that, here and there, they struggled a little bit at Purdue all the time.
True.
You can't just go... Because you look right now in the rankings in that, top 25, it's 6 Big Ten schools in it. Whoever thought that?
Sure, yeah, you've got, let's see, you got Ohio State,
Yeah, Iowa's in there,
Michigan.
Penn, then Michigan State, then Wisconsin.
Yeah, and then Wisconsin, then Michigan State at 24. But then you look at, a team like Notre Dame. I mean, they beat Pittsburgh, but I mean, it was a close game. But you even look at Notre Dame. I mean, they're an independent school. They're not even in a conference, and they're still winning big games. They're 7-0. In my opinion, they should be. You look at the rankings right now. Clemson's at 6-0, and then you've got Notre Dame who's at 7-0 at 4. In my opinion, they should flip flop that. Have Clemson at 4 and Notre Dame at 3, just because of that, because of their record. Because you think about it.
Well, they also take into anticipation their schedule and that too.
True.
Which I think that should be in the consideration of if you only play 2 good schools and all the rest are like, mediocre or joker games.
Right.
It should be reflected.
Right. I mean, and you also think about, they were, Notre Dame they are under a great head coach in Brian Kelly, but they also have a backup quarterback playing right now. Brandon Wimbush isn't even playing right now. They have their backup Ian Book playing. So that's also, him going into these hostile, I feel like, having this, Notre Dame, they're an independent school, but they're in the top 5. They've got Army next week, Navy on the 27th. Is that next week? The 27th? Is that in 2 weeks?
2.
So in 2 weeks, they've got Navy, and then they're at Northwestern, and then at home against Florida State and Syracuse, and then they finish out the year at USC. In my opinion, Northwestern, Florida State, Syracuse, and USC are the games they have to win. If they want to stay,
But the only 2 things they got to worry about, definitely USC at the end of the year.
Oh, definitely.
Besides even Northwestern.
Northwestern's been playing very well.
Here and there, their record doesn't reflect it, but here and there, they know how to turn it up when it comes to that big show.
Right.
So
I feel like one of the biggest wins they've had this year is the game against Stanford, beating Stanford at home. I feel like that was a huge.
But I was hoping one thing out of this weekend. I was hoping Pittsburgh was going to knock them off, though.
Why do you say that?
Because you look already, it's 7 out of top 25 schools that got, upset. So,
Right,
why not another one?
Right. You look at, Washington lost. West Virginia lost. Penn State lost. That's still, it's kind of funny to see how, towards the end of the year, coming into those marquee games, these teams are slipping up, and it's like, But, you also think about, Alabama doesn't have really that tough of a schedule, despite a couple big games. But, you look at Ohio State, how good they've been playing. They've got Dwayne Haskins, who's playing phenomenal football. You've got 2 first-round picks, with Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins, K.J. Hill. Those guys they're playing good, solid football, and they're just,
Well, the only thing is now going on the road again.
Right.
Can they improve from the last time?
Right.
From Penn State.
Right.
If they can't, then we have an issue.
Right. And, you also look at, they're going to be at Purdue. It's going to be a hostile. My guess is going to be a hostile environment. But, Haskins has been in situations before as far as hostile environments. He played well against Penn State at Penn State, which was a whiteout, and the fans were going crazy. But in my opinion, with the way Haskins has been playing, I mean, you never thought that this guy would be playing so well, given he only played once last year, and that was towards the end of the Michigan game. If you think about it,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we sort of thought, okay, this guy may have a couple hiccups here and there. He hasn't really had many miscues. I mean, it surprises me because this guy's playing very well. I mean, but yet again, he's got a good receiving core and running back,
Yeah.
group. I mean,
Well, looking at the box score and that, they were rushing, or they were struggling on rushing. And he's definitely not the one, unless you get lightened bit over the off season or get a little quicker,
right,
that he can't run these different draws or things
right,
or options.
right.
They need to find something. So we can't just always pass it.
Because if you look at, throughout the game, it was kind of funny watching it. Minnesota was up at points. I mean, it was scaring me. Like, they were up 14, 14-0, and then Ohio State came back and started scoring, and I was shocked. I'm like, this is not, I mean, it was blowing my mind because you look at how good Ohio State is, and they just, Ohio State had an early lead, and then it was 7-3, and then 4, and then, but I mean, you look at Minnesota. I mean, it was a very good game, not what anybody. I don't think anybody expected it to be, a close game. 30-14. I feel like people expected it to be a blowout. But
The most part, the only thing is looking online and that this morning, I didn't realize, most of our D line was not playing.
right, I mean, you look at Nick Bosa. They said he's officially going to be coming back for the Michigan game, and he's a huge piece of that defensive line.
Well, what is it? Jones was out. It was one of the middle linebacker or one of the linebackers. It was like a few different linemen. But that's the only one problem with it is you have all these great guys, but behind the depth hasn't
Right, hasn't shown.
gotten, either the experience and all that.
Right, I mean, it hasn't shown.
The one in the corners I thought was out too.
I don't think.
I forgot who it was. I think it was Antoine something. Yeah, one of the corners were out too
Let's see.
yesterday. Or no, 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah, but the only thing is, with the depth we had, they should be able to put up a little more of that. But then you have a young, unexperienced underclassmen behind that.
Right. I mean, you look at how, Minnesota was just pounding the ball at us, and we had answers for them, but we didn't have many, because we didn't have some of the key guys, in that, behind the defensive line, the middle linebackers, without, as I said before, without Nick Bosa, that just, I feel like when he comes back for the Michigan game, the defense is going to be completely different. We feel we're going to be better, but.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk a little Browns with you. I know, sadly, they had a loss, but Browns they lost to the Chargers 38-14. It was a embarrassment, in my opinion, given everything that, given that we had the win, we had a good showing against Baltimore, but then to come back and just to get, I'd call it manhandled. Our defensive line was like, we could not tackle Melvin Gordon, period. I feel that's the thing that killed us. And then also at the end of the game, that penalty or that offside or the false start that should have been called on whoever.
They shot themselves in the foot too.
For what reason? And
What, the Browns and
Yeah.
that? You have, what was it? After Chargers scored a touchdown, it was what, third and whatever and that?
Yeah.
Baker's rolling towards the sideline. He goes and launches it.
Mhm.
And Callaway's wide open. He threw it into the sidelines.
Right. Well, then you also think about, I think it was, what was it?
Not only they couldn't score for garbage, and especially in the first quarter of having either really good field position or within, the red zone.
Right.
They couldn't score worth anything.
Right.
They were afraid of the end zone.
Right. And then you also think about, Baker twisting his ankle on that marker. I feel like he would have ran a lot more had it not been for him twisting his ankle or hurting his ankle. Because I feel like he, you saw, I don't know if you watched the game, but you saw Tyrod Taylor warming up, and you're like, oh no, here we go. They're gonna bring Tyrod back. I feel like he had that, if you would, like that adrenaline rush, like, hey, I'm staying in. I'll play through it. I mean, I feel like he played through it very, very well. I mean, but looking at next week's game against Tampa, Tampa, Jameis is going to be playing. It's going to be a test for the Browns. I mean, I feel like this was that test that they needed. Because I feel like every team so far has taken the Browns lately, except for the Chargers. I feel like the Chargers took them as, okay, this is a great football team. We're not taking them lightly. Because you look at the Ravens. I feel like from the first game to the Baltimore game, I feel like those teams took us lightly. They didn't take us as a,
No, they were ticked because you think the last time they played us,
we
were mediocre and we were able to beat them.
Right. But I feel like going into the game against, coming up, against Tampa, I think this will be another test for Baker to see, okay, playing, on the road again. I mean, against a great defense. I think Tampa's not, I don't think they have a great defense.
No, they don't have a great defense.
But this is just going to be a test to show, okay, can Baker come off of a loss and capitalize, like, okay, I got to up my game? Because some of those throws were just, they weren't.
He was here and there throwing into double coverage. I don't know what he thought.
But you got to have that risk taker. If he can
to
make
a point, but if it's a guy or two different guys, they're really, within like a foot and a half from your wide receiver, it's not a bright idea to go and throw it there.
Right, but when you think about it, you look at, he can make those throws. It's been proven he can make those throws into double coverage, which is, in my opinion, a great, trait to have, because you want that guy, as I said before, you want that guy that can be a risk taker, that can make those throws and can put it right on point.
Throwing it to a tight end that's 10 yards away or like maybe 13 yards away from you, and it's two linebackers that are a foot and a half away from the wide receiver, it's not a bright idea to throw it there.
Right.
Just saying.
Right. And then look at these stats. Baker went 22 of 46 for 238 yards and a touchdown and 2 interceptions. The one touchdown was to David Njoku at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So, I feel like the Browns need to look at that and go, they did not score a touchdown. It was basically field goals. They had one touchdown. That does not, in my opinion, that does not win games. It was proven there.
Baker pulling it together and after halftime doesn't win games either.
Right.
We don't have an offense in the first, half of a game.
Right.
Which I got to say, and especially a few times in the first half, they got some really good field position. Here and there, they got really down there.
Right. You look at Jabril Peppers. He had a couple good, punt returns or kick returns. But then he would get tripped. He would, he tried to do some special move, and it just wouldn't work.
But he gave it a net. It's on the offense. It's on the QB.
Right. I forget. What you were saying to me before the show, what was the thing you were saying about Baker Mayfield?
Baker slow start Mayfield?
Yeah, that. I feel like, this whole, when the Browns won those 2 games, with Baker, the Jets game and then the Baltimore game, I feel like everybody started going a little bit, I would put it over their heads about Baker, like, oh, this is our savior.
It was one guy Thursday morning when he did his show that was saying he's going to be in the Hall of Fame as a first valid Hall of Famer. He's the answer. How can you see that after what? This is what? The third game and a half for that?
Right, third, yeah. I mean, you really can't grade him because he came in against the Jets at the start of the second half, or end of the first half, start of the second half. But when he started against Baltimore, he played very well. But, as I said before, a lot of these teams took us lightly. LA is one of the teams that didn't take us lightly. I mean, you look at Baltimore, they didn't run the ball all that much. You look at New York, they didn't run the ball that much. I mean,
our problem is one thing: we don't have an offense that could. It would be impressive to see 17 points before halftime up.
Right.
I can't name one time in the past 3.5 games, or can't even say the half, just 3 games. When did I see, Baker go up and put 2 touchdowns in before halftime?
Right.
Didn't see it yet. Stay tuned for that episode.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you look at, I don't know if you were following this, but Baker Mayfield, his jersey is one of the top-selling jerseys behind Tom Brady. In front of Tom Brady, excuse me.
This is sort of the mob mentality of, oh, well, he's the savior.
Right.
Everyone needs to hit the brakes for once, just a little.
Right.
But no one seems to be.
Right. I mean,
that's why the NFL is probably charging, what, $100 for the jersey?
Well, I paid, what was it, $108 for and free shipping for a jersey. I mean, that's. But I mean, if you think about it, it is, Cleveland. As people were saying, they jumped onto that bandwagon of, Baker. I mean, you probably didn't watch the game, or you probably. I don't know if you didn't
completely watch it.
Well, they were showing some fans that had the chef's hats on, or as they call them, Baker hats on, and they were. I mean, then you had this lady probably in her mid-60s wearing a full-on Baker outfit. I mean, people, as you said before, people need to slow down, hit the brakes a little bit, because this is. Baker Mayfield is seeing all of this. He's seeing people doing this stuff. He's seeing people. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. To see all the energy in Cleveland for the Browns, that's great. But when people are going overboard, like costumes and what have yous, it's
just watch. If he wins this game this weekend, it'll be probably a conversation of building a statue of him in gold,
which is wrong because he hasn't. He's contributed wins to us, but he hasn't contributed anything big. He hasn't contributed a Super Bowl or anything like that yet. But
hey, we're going to make the playoffs. Let's build this gold statue for Baker Mayfield.
Well, here's the thing: is that what if that backfires on you and he ends up, leaving Cleveland?
I know.
What happens then? You gonna take a wrecking ball to the statue and waste all that gold for nothing?
This is Cleveland; they would do that.
True.
Just saying.
Right, going on what you're saying about the statue, think about who deserves a statue in Cleveland. Baker doesn't deserve one yet. In my opinion, the only guy that deserves a statue in Cleveland is Francisco Lindor. Period. End of story.
Even Thomas.
Joe Thomas, definitely.
Giving back to the community, all that, even still around, helping out the team, all that mumbo jumbo.
Right. I mean, he had 10,363 consecutive snaps.
Even still yet, he bouches in the media and that for us.
You got me turned that? All right, this is David. I'm jumping in. I'm hearing all this nonsense about who should have statues built. Joe Thomas.
Definitely.
There's 2 people in my mind.
11 years he
2
was
people.
Here.
2 people that deserve a statue in the city of Cleveland. Jim Brown.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie
hit the game-winning shot that won us the championship and did a lot more to win us that championship.
Okay, I'll give him that, but I mean
the shot. There should be a statue of him shooting that shot.
Right, but then you look at Joe Thomas. 10,363 consecutive snaps.
No, he's the most over. I think we've talked about this with both you guys. In my opinion, Joe Thomas is the most overrated player. I think probably in Cleveland Browns sports history.
I don't know about that.
Huh?
He's the most solid. I'll give him that. He's the most consistent player that I've ever, for football. That is pretty impressive. I'm not taking that away from him.
Well, even in the impressive
the Iron
of the
Man.
offered him a way to leave Cleveland, and he says
And-
no, he wants to stay here.
That's pretty awesome of him. Okay, I'll give you that. But I think that his longevity, but I don't think his talent was all. I don't think he was like this unbelievable, unstoppable left tackle that no lineman could get past. Do you think? I mean, is that what you think
I'm
of
not
when you think
even
of Joe Thomas?
saying. Here and there, yeah, he gave up a sack and all that stuff.
Right.
He wasn't the invisible guy that didn't let anyone touch a QB or push him off the line of scrimmage.
Right.
No, it's not that.
He was
But
an Iron
being-
Man, and he was loyal to Cleveland. Does that make you?
Gave back to the community. He's still
doing other things. I mean,
here and there, still with the team, helping out
statue?
with things.
yes.
For being a nice guy, basically?
Well, he was. I mean, he played.
I mean, that's really what you guys are saying. I
Right.
mean, other than him
Does
being an
Baker
Iron
deserve
Man.
a
Heck
statue?
no, a statue? He's a rookie quarterback. He
No,
hasn't proven
Joe
anything.
Thomas. You're talking about Baker.
He just brought up Baker Mayfield.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Baker. No.
No way.
No.
No.
I mean,
Not including, I think, still yet, you'll still see with Thomas in the future some probably remarkable things he'll still do for either the
His
team.
problem for me is
and
that we'll never really know how great of a player he was or was not. He was always on a crappy team. I mean, we had a couple seasons where we were a pretty good team.
Well,
you know,
even
with him,
still yet,
but-
with Bantonio coming, giving advice, the rookie, was it Harrison?
yeah, Desmond
The
Harrison.
left tackle now?
Yeah.
He didn't have to come back and help him out, give him advice and
Right.
stuff.
Again,
like
so we're
that.
talking about a statue. I
He
mean,
cares for the
a
team.
nice guy award, maybe, but not a statue.
Oh.
He cares for the team, even still yet after retiring, of coming in as sort of that extra coach.
And I love that. I love that about the about some of the Cleveland players that do stay and end up falling in love with Cleveland, whether they're from here or not. Usually they're not, and they end up falling in love with the city because we fall in love with them.
Right.
So I get it, but again, we're talking about statues
Right.
for great players. Jim Brown is really.
He
and
deserves-
not even Kyrie.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't even give Kyrie Irving one right now. You know, maybe in the future I would do that, but Jim Brown. That's the only guy I could think of that I would
Yeah.
say statue.
At some point in time, I could see.
Or maybe
Thomas.
Satchel Paige. He was the first African American
Oh yeah,
baseball player in the major leagues. That was Cleveland, Ohio. That would be another guy I would
yeah,
think of.
with the Indians and
The
that.
Cleveland Indians.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But I could see if the Browns do something like in front of the stadium and that, I could see them doing it.
Jim
of
Brown would be the
Thomas
only one. I mean, who do the
at
Bulls
some point in
have?
time.
The Chicago Bulls. Who do they have?
Jordan.
They've got Jordan. He was the greatest ever. Jim
Eh.
Brown, the greatest ever.
I don't know if you could say Michael Jordan was the greatest.
Oh, I definitely can. There's no
LeBron.
LeBron is he's the greatest. A second, he's not a leader. That's a whole nother argument. I don't want to get into that. We're talking about statues. And do you think LeBron deserves a statue in Cleveland?
For all the stuff he's done for Cleveland, think about the I Promise School.
They're going to do
Think about-
something in Akron, though. I can guarantee
He's
that.
done a lot, but then he took a lot from us. Also, we lost a lot of money because of him. We had a lot of money because of him.
But even
There's goods
still,
and bads. There's a
yeah.
whole. I would not build a statue of that guy. I don't like him.
When they're
Build one of them in Akron.
Well, no, in University of Akron, going and giving them what is it, 33,000
Yeah,
when he came back and that.
Yeah,
Even still, yet for many years,
Right.
to fund people to go to college to the I Promise school.
Right. all that-
LeBron
that-
has always been loyal to Akron. He just has not always been loyal to Cleveland.
Right. But then you think about, Joe Thomas. He spent all of his years in Cleveland. He deserves a statue flat out. I mean, you think
Back
about,
to Joe Thomas.
right, but no, here's the thing. So you think about he as you said before, he was an Iron Man. He had 10,363 consecutive snaps. He
That's
did not miss a
awesome.
snap.
Unbelievable.
I mean that's
What's
That's got okay. You know what? You guys are you've just convinced me. Maybe he does deserve something. I don't know about the statue though. That's a stretch. You got to be. I think to deserve a statue, you got to be. You have to have two categories. You have to do all that stuff, everything that Joe Thomas. And I think you have to be one of the greatest at your positions.
he is. He's a 10-time Pro Bowler.
That's
I mean-
okay. There's another argument for you. That's because the Cleveland Browns stunk year after year after year. Who's on the ballot year after year? You're a fan in the stadium voting on the ballot. Who do I know on the Cleveland Browns? Oh, that Joe Thomas guy. He's like their best player. Let's vote for him. I mean, that's how
Well, no,
he made the Pro Bowl every single year.
Right.
Not precisely, per se. Because you had a little bit Edwards, people were fascinated when he came in and then
Braylon?
turned into
Braylon?
Butterfingers.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
It's
Did he
been,
make the Pro Bowl?
I thought once.
Maybe
was,
that
yeah.
year with Derek Anderson when he
I
was
thought
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because Thomas was here too. Both
Right.
of them won.
I think we won 10 games that year and didn't make the playoffs.
DeQuell Jackson, he made it to a few Pro Bowls.
Well, he was one of the better.
TJ Ward,
Yeah, T.J. Ward,
he
Joe
made
Hayden.
it at least two.
Right.
I thought. Yeah, Hayden made it to
Hayden.
at least 2 or 3.
Right.
Another overrated player.
Who, Hayden?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Yeah, you go here and there. It's been besides like him going for 10. It's been here and there other Browns that made it. I thought
Yeah.
Derek.
What about
Derek,
Cribbs?
yeah,
Josh Cribbs, yeah.
Derek Anderson, I
thought
guarantee he made
one.
it the 1 year because he was when they had Winslow and Edwards and
Cribbs had to make at least I thought 3, if
three.
not 4.
I mean, just for his special teams,
Yeah.
he got voted in
Oh, yeah.
every year almost. He was
Right.
unbelievable.
But then you also think about, going back to Joe Thomas. He spent his entire career in Cleveland. He did not leave Cleveland at
Right.
all.
That's awesome.
In my opinion, I know I don't know if
LeBron can't say that.
I mean, he's from. Granted, Joe Thomas is from Wisconsin. He was born and raised in Wisconsin. But I think everybody's gonna think of him as a Cleveland
oh, definitely.
guy. I mean,
I'll tell you this. I
Well,
would
even
have a
the-
statue built of Joe Thomas before I would of LeBron.
okay. I mean, I could see that definitely.
Well, even with him going with the draft, not going to New York, going fishing with his father.
Who?
That's what Thomas
Yeah,
did.
Thomas-
He didn't
yeah,
go
yeah.
to.
Oh.
He didn't go
He
to
like
New
went
York.
hunting. Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah, he went. He was sitting on a boat in the middle of a lake with his father fishing. And he found out later where he got drafted to and all that, and where. So yeah,
That would be
he
something.
didn't care for the spotlight.
That's pretty cool. That I did not know that he was being an advisor. They should hire him as a coach or a
I see it some
lineman
time.
coach.
They might.
Although
I
he's
think-
doing his TV thing. I think he's always wanted to get into television, and that's another reason why he's probably not a coach.
Who?
Joe Thomas.
I could see him here and there being that sort of special advisor here and there.
Yeah, like,
'Cause he did
Bernie
that for
Kosar.
Browns.
Yeah, Kosar. He's another.
Well, no,
genius.
Jim Brown. He was what, a special advisor for like 4
I
or
don't think they
5
were
years
listening
or
to him
something.
though. Unfortunately,
No, because I thought that was when him and Banner were
That's the
going
most
at it.
diehard. That guy. I don't know why he does not have a statue right now. I mean, Jim Brown is considered the greatest, not just running back. He's considered the greatest NFL player of all time. On top of
Well, especially from the '60s.
yeah, I mean, he was just unbelievable. I mean, Barry Sanders at one point, people were comparing him to Jim Brown, saying he was the greatest. And Barry Sanders, at the time when they were saying he was better than Jim Brown, he said, "No way, Jim Brown was the greatest."
Yeah, if you look in Cleveland Browns history and that, you look at all the people that went Pro Bowls here, came back, all that. The two that the fans absolutely love the most, you got Brown, Thomas.
You're
Flat
talking
simple.
about so we're talking about Browns fans from when we had to basically start over, Browns fans, because
Right.
a lot, and you know what, a lot of people don't remember when it's so sad.
But still, yeah, with those two, you get them in that, you'll have a flock of people.
See, I think of
even
like the old
individually.
school
Now I just pulled up Jim Brown's career stats. He had 2,359 career carries,
Browns. He only
12,312.
I think he only played 8 years too, maybe.
Yeah.
12,312
Either 8 or 9.
career yards, and he had 106 career touchdowns.
You want to see
I mean,
someone, the closest player, the year that Adrian Peterson missed the record, rushing record by 4 yards or something.
yeah.
That is the closest, because I've seen almost every one of Jim Brown's that's on film anyway of his plays and him playing. That is the closest player I've ever seen to look like a Jim Brown, just shredding tacklers, unbelievable strength.
Now, what about Melvin Gordon? Let me ask that question. What about the guy that the Browns just lost to, Melvin Gordon? Would
You can't equate them. Yeah.
Not yet.
You got to see, because he's what, third-year player,
Yeah, he's still
fourth? Nah. Yeah, I think he's third year.
It's hard to running backs in this day and age. It's hard to tell because, God, who's Tampa Bay's running back a few years ago? He's really good.
Rondé Barber.
No, after him,
Martin?
Doug Martin.
Yeah.
No, not Doug. Was it Doug Martin? They called him the gerbil or something. Do you remember that? The hamster.
Oh.
God,
Yeah,
what
that was
his
like
name?
a few.
It was just a few years ago, and he had a really good rookie year, and everybody thought he was going to be like the next guy. And
I think it was Doug.
Oh,
He's
Ronald
actually
Jones.
no,
he's out at Oakland now.
okay. That's
As
how
a backup.
I got to get back into. I haven't. If anybody's out there listening, this is Dave, and I haven't followed sports in many, many years.
The only reason I know that's because of fantasy, because I seen his name on there.
So
To be honest, I wasn't following it. That's the only reason why I know this.
Okay.
Fantasy football.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you're right, Doug Martin. Though I think that's who it was.
Right. But I mean,
But-
go back to statues. I mean, it's all it's what the fans want. Do they want? I mean, everybody I think wants that Jim Brown statue. I mean,
That's a no-brainer.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just even talking about it, and just to say that we do not in the city of Cleveland have a statue of Jim Brown. It's pretty ridiculous.
actually, no,
come.
they do. They do have a statue of Jim Brown.
There is.
It's right
At the stadium?
Yes, they do.
They actually do.
Yep,
When was
It's-
that done?
it's been done. It's right at the. It's right here.
All right, it's pretty ridiculous. Let me take that back. It's pretty ridiculous that as a
Oh.
Browns fan that I did not know that.
Yeah, I've taken a picture. I
Well,
have
it's not many
pictures-
times we wanted to go down there for a game. Let's face that.
I've been there quite a few times.
Yeah, it's right
But
at.
in recently, how many times have you want to go down there?
When was that statue put up? That's what I'd like to know.
I bet within the past 3.
Let's see.
'Cause
Past 3
I
years
haven't
or
been there
so.
in the past 3 years.
Yeah, it's been at least probably 4 or 5 for myself.
Yeah, probably 6 for me, maybe.
Let's see when was
It's
it?
been a while.
Oh, it was before the first home game of the 2016-2017 season.
Ah, okay.
that
so
they
yeah.
unveiled it.
Well, it only took them that long to build one, but at least they got it done.
Right.
That's pretty awesome. I was thinking about this last night. I don't know why.
But let's face it, the team sucked that year, so no one went down there. So that's why not many people always know that.
We were talking about the stadium, and I think what a piece of crap it is. This owner that we got, I think that if this Browns team, when and if they start coming together and playing like contenders, I'd really love to see this owner demolish this piece of crap stadium. We got this quote-unquote state-of-the-art stadium, considered state-of-the-art because it was built so cheaply, by the way. Tear that crap down, build us a dome stadium. Not quite as big or as luxurious as the Dallas Stadium, but something awesome on the lake. How cool would that be? Where we could have a stadium where we could actually host a Super Bowl or a Pro Bowl. Pro Bowls are in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, they
but
are.
a Super Bowl or a World Series or something in the whatever.
Maybe Final Four.
Whatever. How
Yeah.
awesome would that be? And Cleveland is an up-and-coming city. It really is. They're
Right.
rebuilding all of downtown. I just
The only
think that
problem
would
is
be the
where would you
move.
put it?
Right where it is. They
Well,
essentially.
and then where would they play in the meantime? That's the problem.
well,
Oh, I mean, you've got. Well, I mean, you do have. I mean, I don't know if you
there's
could
a
fit.
lot of space there.
You could fit. You could go into the queue. Heck, the arena football. I mean,
yeah.
That's not big enough for an NFL game. No.
That's why he's saying arena. But I think they'd be able to figure out
You can go to the
parking. They would have to build it on one of the lots.
you could. Well, you could play at the Hall of Fame Stadium down in Canton. You could always play some of your
Yeah.
home games there. I mean,
How cool would that
I
be?
mean, think about the high schools that play
Why
there. Canton,
not?
McKinley, all those Canton high schools that play at the Hall of Fame Stadium. The Browns could, for all we know, could play there for a couple games and let the stadium be built.
Why not?
I mean, that is a very nice stadium. I mean, it does fit a good size.
We need that. I think that's one of the last pieces, not just for the Browns, but for the city of Cleveland. I think we
Maybe in the
deserve.
future.
Yeah, hopefully
If we have a winning
remedial
season.
one.
I mean, I think-
right. I think once that happens,
Yeah.
once our team becomes a really, really competitive team,
Right.
I'd love to see that happen.
Right.
I think our city deserves that.
Right.
A nice
Right.
a dome. Give
Right.
us a dome.
Right, I mean, give
We're
us the-
sick of the cold
right,
weather.
I mean-
We've suffered enough.
Right, I mean, give it with the Q's going through all the the renovations to the Q. I
Exactly.
mean, you look at that. I mean, they're gonna have a nice glass atrium. I mean, it's.
Exactly.
I mean, they're gonna have a nice.
That's
state
gonna
of the
be
art.
that place is gonna be beautiful, and I think the Browns deserve that too. You know,
Yeah.
and this is a football
town,
city.
right? I mean, you look at when you watch the games, you see the flyovers. It's just doesn't look like one of those. You know, it doesn't look like a Mercedes-Benz stadium or a. You know,
They tricked us. They built a quick stadium. They didn't put a lot of thought into it,
Right.
and they kind of just built it as quickly as possible. And it seemed nice. It's a
Right.
decent place,
I
but
mean, it is, yes. But I feel like the one thing I think that people I think love is the sound system in there. I mean, the scoreboards are awesome, but the
Well,
sound.
they
I mean,
replaced that.
They replaced all
what
that.
3 years ago
Yeah,
or
it's been-
something,
it's
or
been-
2.
it's been a few years.
Yeah, they
Right.
replaced all that stuff.
But why couldn't they just build a dome then? If they're replacing the scoreboards and everything, just build a dome then. I mean,
I think
Oh well,
that,
it's not
that-
as easy as
Yeah.
what you think, especially because you have to add on the top structural
They need to just
beams
start
and all
over.
that.
just take a wrecking ball to it and just.
yeah, basically.
It's not as easy with what it is shaped as.
Oh, that's true.
Structurally, they probably never thought of that when they built that.
Yeah, I
in
don't
the
know who- I-
late 90s.
I don't know who designed that, but
They did a bad job of it.
horrible design.
Right.
It's crazy
Because,
too
I mean-
because Cleveland's got such a beautiful build. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was designed by a world-renowned architect.
Right, then you got the Great Lakes Science Center. I mean, you have all
Right.
those things downtown. I mean, and then you also look at the flats. You know, that's all redone. I mean, I feel like the Browns. You know, that stadium is the only stadium that's just like it doesn't stand out. I mean, it stands out to the
It
point
stands out for being looks like a piece of
Factory
crap.
Factory of Sadness.
of
Factory of Sadness.
Factory of
I
Sadness.
mean, it's just unbelievable. The Browns, our Modell took the team from the city. One of the reasons was because of the crappy stadium. So we knocked down the old stadium to build a new crappy stadium with horrible parking. And you got to walk across a freeway when you're drunk after the game. I don't know who they put in charge of this, but
Right, but you know, I feel like with Jimmy Haslam, you know, he's.
yeah,
I mean, heck,
he's got money, and I think he's ready to invest
I mean,
into this
and- I
team
mean, heck, he's
into
saving-
things like
he's-
that.
Well, he's investing now in the
Columbus Crew,
Yeah.
the soccer team. He's saving that soccer
He
team.
wants
in
to.
Columbus.
I'm hoping that he wants to be like a Jerry Jones type owner. And
Oh, man.
I think that would be awesome.
Right,
We need that.
Right, we need a
Robert Kraft.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like, you know, I mean, I would love to see, you know, Columbus. I get, you know, the soccer team's in Columbus, but I'd love to see them, you know, given that the Browns have hosted those, you know, national team games at First Energy. I'd love to see the Browns build a dome and then have Columbus be called the Cleveland Crew. Just call it that. I mean, you know what I mean? Just like it's like with the Lake Erie Monsters. They were called that. Now they're called the Cleveland Monsters. You know, all these teams. You know, I'd love to see that. You know, have a soccer team in Cleveland. You
We
know?
need a hockey team. I'd
They
probably
would-
get into
we-
hockey if we had a hockey team.
We do. We got the Columbus.
No, like an NHL team in Cleveland.
True.
Oh, in Cleveland. Okay. I mean,
yeah.
that's true.
I can't see the
We have
crew
everything
leaving
else.
Columbus though.
You can't or you can.
I can't.
It's kind of weird. That's
I
another
can
thing.
see Cleveland going and getting and starting a team, but I can't see that happening.
Wait, the Crew's a soccer team?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
MLS.
See, we had who do we have? The Force. You
Yeah.
remember the Force? The Crunch.
Yeah, the Force Crunch and
Force was my favorite. They were always like world champions, and they used the Star Wars as their theme song.
Oh, well, no wonder.
Yeah, it was awesome.
No wonder with the name.
The Force, the Crunch. There was one other one that I can't think of.
Oh,
The Barons? No, that was that
No.
was the NHL team, the Cleveland Barons.
Force, Crunch. Because the Force went
blanking
away,
now.
the Crunch came, the Force came back, and then I think we had one other thing. But anyway, we did have,
Yeah.
and they actually the Force practiced in Menor, at the Menor Country. Is that the Menor Country Club? Is that what that's
I
called?
thought, yeah.
Yeah, on Heisley.
I actually was down there when they were changing it from the Crunch and that they bought different things, soccer ball
Yeah.
and all that with that stuff on it.
Yeah.
Before they changed the name. My first time ever going and seeing a game was right before they stripped that name.
There you go. The Cleveland actually did have an NHL team, the Cleveland Barons.
Cleveland Baron, the NHL?
Yeah, 1970, what was it? Or 1976
Really?
to 1978. They were
They
were
only
relocated.
lasted 2 years.
And
Huh?
then, yeah, and then they were relocated to California.
Who did they become?
They were
Look
a
at all these teams
relocation
that
of
come
the
from Cleveland.
California Golden Seals franchise that had played in Oakland since 1967.
Did they become like a regular team, or did they fold too?
Well, actually, here's something. Then they merged the teams. The team merged with the Minnesota North Stars.
Okay,
So-
I kind of. Are they still in the league? I remember that team.
I don't know. I really don't. But here's something cool. The Cleveland Barons actually played at the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio.
That was
when
a
they were
cool
here.
place. That you never got to go to that place, huh?
I did not. My dad.
That
wh-
was
where
so
my dad, 'cause when my
cool.
dad goes out there when he goes to work, he actually gets to see the land where that used to be. I mean, it's just now it's just a grassy field, which kind of, is kind of making people mad. Like, dude, like.
I don't understand why more cities don't design a build like an arena like that.
I'd love to see.
building.
I'd love to see him put like a replica, like a small little replica, or like a replica that you can see just there to say, hey, this is where we were first. This is where the Cats first played before they moved down.
They
downtown.
might. You never know with now the renovations that they're doing.
They could very easily put a little like stone, like what they could create like a heritage park.
Yeah,
With
that
the
place
Cats.
was so cool, man. It
I
was
mean-
so cool. Did,
Well,
did
you
your dad
know-
ever explain to you like how it was? Like, so you'd walk into the building,
No, I never explained
and then okay, so this is how the Richfield Coliseum was. You'd walk into the building,
Uh-huh.
and you'd be at the top of the court.
Are you serious?
So everything was below ground. Like, so you'd start from the very top,
you start from, like, the
the
nosebleeds.
the nosebleeds, and you'd walk down to your seats.
Oh wow.
It was so cool.
So it wasn't like nowadays where it's like
Nothing like now.
there's there wasn't you
No.
weren't walking in at maybe mid level. It
No.
was all started at the top and it was all underground.
And it wasn't, and the way it was designed, even with the way to exit out of the place, they had it down pretty well. Like, there wasn't really bad traffic jams. I mean, you get stuck in traffic jams when you're leaving because everybody's leaving at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
But it was pretty good.
Right.
It was a fun place.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, and then you think about the Lake Erie Monsters. Well, now the Cleveland Monsters. Think about what they've done. I mean, now everybody's noticing them. Nobody ever noticed. Hey, we got an an AHL hockey team in Cleveland, and now we're
I never even knew that. You just educated me this
Yep.
morning. I had no idea we had an NHL team.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always found it strange that Pittsburgh has an NHL team and a football team and a baseball team, but they don't have a basketball team.
Well, they think
We have all that, but we don't have an NHL
Right.
team.
But you think about to them, their basketball team is the University of Pittsburgh. That's technically their basketball team because that's right down in the center. That's right down in downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, if you think about it,
I guess.
I mean, I know it's college and all, but it's still, that's like that's their basketball team. That's their, I mean, you go. I mean, when I went down to a game there, you walk around Pittsburgh, any part of Pittsburgh, and you got people wearing either Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or even the University of Pittsburgh, just
Right.
shirts, just apparel. You really, I mean, if they were to put an NBA team down there, there wouldn't be much. I mean,
I do. The one thing I like about Pittsburgh, there's not very many things I like about them, but I think it's pretty cool that their major sports teams all are black and gold. I think it's pretty cool.
Well,
The
that-
Penguins,
the
the Pirates, and the Steelers.
yeah, that is I mean, yeah, and they are the Steel. I mean, that is the Steel City. So I mean,
We are the Steel City.
no,
We are.
we're the mistake on the lake.
No. Did you know that Cleveland? We were known as the greatest location in the nation. That was what we were known as before the mistake on the lake. all the like extra rich people moved here and built houses all over the place
Right.
here.
Now I want to go back to Baker Mayfield.
Let's go back to Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield.
Now I want to bring up this movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Draft Day, which what's his name, Kevin Costner. It's about the Browns. They're big. It's a big draft
I
thing
sort of seen it.
with
You pancake eating.
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
this
seen
bingo. So they talked about what was his name, the kid from Wisconsin. What was that guy's name? Bo Callahan.
Bo Callahan.
Yeah.
I feel like Baker Mayfield, not to go against Baker, he's a great quarterback, but I feel like that whole Bo Callahan thing really came to Baker. You know what I mean? Like Baker Mayfield, like it flip flopped. Baker. You know what I mean? I feel like, but I mean, you look, you think about that. I mean I know that was a made up character, but I mean, Baker. I mean, I can see
It's
Baker.
many things out of that movie you would be surprised they're sort of happening.
Right. I mean, the team.
No.
I mean.
It's so weird, like how that happens sometimes. Like when the movie Major League came out,
Oh, yeah.
the Indians stunk,
Uh-huh.
and then that movie came out,
Uh-huh.
and then we like became good, kind of like the movie. And there was a lot of like I remember
Similarities.
we had in the movie Sereno, the F you, Joe Boo, I do it myself. That was his name was Sereno. So
Well,
he
you
had a
just-
guy named Paulie Sereno, which I thought was so weird. And then Willie Mays Hayes, that was like our Kenny Lofton.
Right.
And
Then who was Vaughn? Oh my God, it was Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen, Wild Thing.
Right. I mean, that sort of that whole wild thing sort of became Anderson Varejao, who's now who knows where he's at.
Right.
But I mean,
Well, he's retired.
I mean, as you said, you look at all these
That's
movies
a good
about
thing.
Cleveland. You know, you look at Major League, you look at Draft Day. I mean, there hasn't really been a movie made about the Cavs yet. I'm kind of surprised they haven't made a movie about them. I mean,
Probably at some point in time it'll
Oh,
happen.
they won a championship, so
right.
it's
I
not
mean-
like they're a struggling team trying to win their first championship or
Right.
a championship.
They'll
in
do
60
something at
years or
some point in
whatever.
time.
Right.
It's a matter of time. Well, you think the one thing, like the one guy out of draft day that goes in about, well, if you draft whoever and that about playing time and that, then you look at Corey Coleman, what happened.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty damn coincidental that
Oh,
both
you're talking about Brian Drew, the quarterback. You said if you draft, Bo Callahan, I'm out. I'm gone. I feel like that. You look at going back to them, you look at those names. They sort of named some quarterbacks, some former Browns quarterbacks. Brian Drew.
Right.
Brian Hoyer.
Right.
Who was it? Drew. I can't think of a name for a quarterback from the Browns that had the first name Drew. I mean.
Well, Drew Stratton.
Yeah, you look at just. I mean, but you think about that movie, all the names.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of funny to see how in that movie they're trying to make the Browns look good, but in the end they've got a quarterback named after two
Right.
unsuccessful Browns quarterbacks. I mean, but I mean, if Baker Mayfield can be what everybody's saying he could be,
He's gonna be a great quarterback.
Oh yeah, I mean, you
It's
look
not
at
his fault that they dropped like 2 or 3 touchdown passes yesterday.
it's not his fault that they put that plate there where the line where the marker is, and he ended up twisting his ankle on
Right.
it. I mean,
I'm not making any excuses for that guy.
right. I mean,
But,
he's a great quarterback.
He's still, even with that loss, he got sacked like 4 or 5 times.
Right.
He had no protection.
Right, and then I feel like the one thing, as I was talking to Jeremiah before you came in, about that false start call that was not called, where Myles Garrett actually had pointed at the guy and said he had jumped, and it was very clear. I mean, it was like clear as day that you could tell. Hey,
But it's very clear they would have scored touchdowns before in the first half. They
That's-
wouldn't have been in the situation.
Exactly. And you know what? That's something I am getting sick and tired of. This kid throwing these bullet passes, these perfect precision passes, and how many drops? I can't take any more drop passes.
right. I mean, you look at Antonio Callaway. He had a pass that was right in his wheelhouse.
I'm getting sick of it.
I mean, now you're talking about wide receivers. Look at KJ Hill from Ohio State. Did you see his catch against Minnesota, the one-handed?
Yes.
You look at that. I mean, and you look at these guys in the NFL, they got the gloves and everything, they still can't make good catches.
I don't get it.
I mean, it's like, are these guys not using Stickum anymore? I mean, is that Stickum not
I don't get it though. Like, you've been playing this game your whole life.
right? You should know how to
You're
catch
catching the ball your whole life, and you
Right.
can't do it during the game. You're making millions. You're a multi-millionaire. That's your job.
Right.
Catch the ball.
Catch a football. I mean, that's
Catch it. Like, I don't get it.
I feel like they're trying to make those hero catches, like Odell.
Right.
But
Just catch the ball.
right.
Like Willie's. I watched an interview on that guy. That's going to be a solid player right there. He should be our number 2 wide receiver right now, in my opinion. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's another one of these guys like a Baker Mayfield. Like he didn't get drafted. Well, Baker obviously got drafted, but Baker in his college, he was a walk-on. He had to fight for the position at tough schools. Anyways, this kid, undrafted, made the team. And did he do anything? Was he even in the game?
No.
Why? I mean, I'm starting to really not like our head coach. I'm going to tell you this about our head coach. He's not personable enough with the players.
right,
He's one of these old-fashioned coaches that sticks to their guns and how they do things. And I'll tell you what, I've defended him this whole time, but after seeing him talk and him last week giving Baker Mayfield the game ball and telling him, like, hey, I don't really know you too well, but here's a game ball. Like, who says that?
Right.
I don't know you. You know what? I don't know you too well. But here's your game ball. Like, I don't know. I just get a bad vibe from him. And if I'm getting a bad vibe from him, then you know the players are too.
All right. So we're just about out of time. We thank you again for listening. We'll see you guys at 5 o'clock for the afternoon edition of the Sports Show. Have a great day, everybody.